Good evening. We are calling the Planning Commission's meeting of today, Tuesday, July 28, 2021 to roll call. Alan Ige, present.
John Eat, present.
Lou Yang, present.
Fred Dom, present.
Cheryl Sokolsky, present.
Present late.
Hey, Mr. Chair, you want to take over? Approval of the agenda. Any addition?
Chair and Commission staff does not have any amendments to the agenda as presented.
I make a motion we approve. Second it.
Abstain. Approval of the minutes. Any addition, correction to the minutes?
Mr. Chair, did we have a vote or on the approval?
Mr. Chair, you want to take over?
You want me to take over? Okay.
Yep.
We just needed, we had a motion and second on the agenda.
Okay, we had a motion, a second on the agenda. Is there an approval?
Yep.
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, passed.
Abstain.
One abstention, Alan. Approval of the minutes. Any corrections or additions?
Chair and Commission staff does not have any amendments to the minutes as presented.
We need a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes as stated.
There's a motion by
Second.
Fred, second by Alan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, passed. We are on public hearing number 1, capital improvement plans 2022 through 2026. Staff?
Chair and Commission, this is your annual review of the capital improvement plan process. And so Finance Director Ellen Paulseth is here before you tonight to walk through a presentation and answer questions of the Commission. And at the end of the discussion, we would be looking for a recommendation from the Planning Commission on that the capital improvement plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan. That's the core of your review tonight. So with that, I'll hand it to Finance Director Paulseth.
This is different than our budget plan, right? This is capital, this is buildings and that, right?
So as Ms. Paulseth begins her presentation, could we have the slides up on the screen?
Thank you, Mr. Martin, and good evening, Commission members. Tonight we'll be walking through a very short presentation, which is an abbreviated session of what the City Council has been looking at and will continue to look at until they adopt the CIP in December. So as Mr. Martin mentioned, the Planning Commission's role tonight is to ensure that the projects contained within the 5-year plan are in alignment with the comprehensive plan and other planning processes. In other words, that there are no conflicts that may exist. You do have in your packet a copy of this PowerPoint and also a list of the projects that are contained within the 5-year plan. Also, we have with us tonight Mr. Love, the City Engineer and Public Works Director, who will be able to answer questions about the road projects, as most of the projects that really would impact the comprehensive plan would be road or park projects. This is an ongoing process, and you are part of that process tonight. We're constantly identifying capital needs, entering them into a long-range strategic plan. When we identify funding sources, we put them in a CIP and present it to the Planning Commission in a public hearing format, and then also to the City Council, and it becomes part of their annual capital budget and that they adopt in December, and then we proceed to implement it after it's adopted. It may be at this time, I would just like to note that the City Council is not bound by any of these projects. They have to approve each project individually, even though they've approved the plan. So it's kind of like approving the comprehensive plan. Anything they do after approving the plan will need its own separate approval. And again, you will not need to be concerned about the spending decisions because the City Council is doing that hard work. Your role, again, is to take a look at the projects, particularly the street projects, and ensure that they are in alignment with your processes. We will just talk a little bit about financing. This is a list, maybe not completely comprehensive, but a list of the financing tools at our disposal that we use to finance these projects contained within the plan. We are moving as much as possible towards paying as we go for various, particularly for equipment and building improvements when possible, and to some degree roads and streets. City Council has a number of priorities that they establish. We've been kind of going on the same priorities for the last few years. Last year with COVID didn't provide really an opportunity for a new strategic planning session, so that will be ongoing this year. One of the council's priorities is debt reduction and also street improvements, and as part of that, we have been leveraging our local government aid to the extent possible. We had about $1.2 million, $1.3 million in local government aid, and that all goes towards street improvements, and that has helped us lower the outstanding debt. So as far as the timeline goes, tonight the public is having the opportunity to have input on these projects tonight. The City Council will continue to review the projects in workshops, and the final adoption will be in December with the annual budget. So the purpose of this plan, again, as I mentioned, it is a planning document. It does not authorize any expenditures. The Council will authorize each item prior to the spending. But this public hearing is part of the process that's required to issue debt for the street projects. In total, your Excel spreadsheet will total $66 million in projects. As you can see, $50 million of that is streets, so it's primarily a street plan, but there are a little over $5 million in park improvements, and that's part of the City Council's commitment to putting $1 million a year into parks. And there's a small amount for building improvements. Equipment that's needed for the public works fleet and the public safety fleet. We have financing systems in place for that. We don't have to issue debt for most of that equipment. And then there's a small amount included in the plan for economic development. So it gives the community development department and the various boards a little bit of flexibility to work with the various different opportunities that might be presented during the year in this 5-year period. So Mr. Love will talk a little bit about what's in the process for the next 5 years.
So over the next 5 years, we have about 21 miles of proposed street reconstruction. This is both full reconstruction, where we're replacing utilities and curb and gutter and the pavement, as well as what we call pavement reclamation projects, where essentially we have good utilities, good curb, but really we're out there fixing the pavement. This represents about 15.6% of our city streets. One of the tools that we've been using very successfully over the last couple of years is spot paving. So essentially what we're doing with this is it's kind of like a large Band-Aid for the roads that are in the worst possible conditions. So when a road gets to the point where we can't continue to hold it together with pothole patching, and it's still a number of years off from a CIP project, we're able to, as the picture shows here, put a thin layer of asphalt over this. It's been it's been received very well by the residents and our staff as well, because we're also not returning to the same spots, refilling them over and over throughout the year. And we have been we've been using $80,000 a year in SRF funds, and we kind of distribute where we put this, throughout the city, really kind of targeting the worst of the worst areas. So looking at 2022 projects, the first project we have here is Cope Avenue. This would be from English Street out to White Bear Avenue. It's about $3,750,000. It's 1.09 miles, and has a pavement condition rating of 41 out of 100. So that PCI rating, just so you kind of understand what that is, we walk a third of the city streets each year, and we rate them we basically catalog and categorize all the different pavement failures. And this gives us a rating on a scale of 1 to 100, with 100 being a brand-new road. Jarvis Avenue is another project that we have planned, which is 2.67 miles, and it's $4.23 million. Has a pavement rating of 45 out of 100, and this includes Jarvis west of White Bear and the neighborhood there as well as 11th Avenue to the east of White Bear there. And then the third project is the McMenemy Street project. It's a 1 mile long. It's we estimated at $4.4 million. We were successful in getting a grant of over $1 million for this project recently, which will help pay for part of the project. It has a PCI rating of 43 out of 100. So as you can see, these are all areas that are in tough shape pavement condition wise. All in all, next year, in 2022, it'll be about 4.75 miles. 4.75 miles.
Other major projects besides the street projects in the next 5 years, there's a potential opportunity to develop the Gladstone neighborhood. That's been in the CIP for a number of years, so we keep it in there in case that opportunity arises. Park upgrades, there'll be a number of playground upgrades, some upgrades to the Nature Center boardwalk, a variety of facility upgrades, lift station, and some more road projects that are in conjunction with the county. Did you want to say anything more about those?
Sure. So we coordinate with the county, obviously, on their projects. Right now, one of the projects that we're looking at is White Bear Avenue and Larpenteur Avenue. This would be a 2023 construction, but planning has already started with that. The county is doing a great job of, involving city staff and to be able to weigh in on the projects and make sure that, our needs are being met, whether they be the conditions of the pavement, or we look at things like pedestrian facilities that might be needed to be added to the project.
And it isn't specifically listed here, but in the next 5 years, one of the parks that has been slated to receive significant improvements is Goodrich Park. So basically that is it for our presentation. Again, we will take questions at the end, and again, want to remind you that if you have any questions about how these projects may or may not conform with the comprehensive plan or any of your other planning processes, we will try to answer those tonight. And then paying special attention to the 2022 capital improvement projects, because those are the ones that are actually going to be moving forward with the budget process. It doesn't mean that the council won't have a second opportunity. They will be approving those projects individually, but they will allocate funding with the 2022 budget. So those are the ones, the 3 street projects that Steve went through that are most concerned. So any questions for us tonight?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Alan, if you look like you're ready.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, how do you administer the pay-as-you-go? How does pay-as-you-go affect sustainability?
Yeah, that's a good question, Commissioner. So it works a little bit differently with every item. So for instance, vehicles and equipment, the fleet, there is a certain amount that is charged against the taxpayers in the tax levy every year, and there's a certain amount that's put into the fleet funds every year. So we figure out the life cycle costing of every piece of equipment. So we know approximately how much for the next 10 years and 20 years, approximately how much money we will need. It doesn't mean that that there's an exact time or date that a piece of equipment will go out of service, because if there's an opportunity to extend the life or extend the service, we will do that. But we put aside a certain amount of money every year to pay cash for the vehicles. So we also have a significant portion of the city's street projects that are being paid for on a pay-as-you-go basis, meaning with cash. We do still bond for about a third of it, but we do have certain sources of revenue, our electric and gas utility franchise fees and local government aid, and a few other smaller sources of revenue that are added together to help pay for these improvements on an annual basis. We're not quite there yet with the streets. We still do have to borrow about a third of the cost, but we're working towards that.
But then the other part is done by the homeowners? What percentage is paid by the homeowners?
Correct, yes. That's a good question. So a certain portion of the streets may be assessed to the homeowners, and usually it is it 20%, Steve?
Yeah, at least.
At least 20%, yeah.
Okay.
So some of these pay as you go, we have to come back to the commission for approval?
Not to the planning commission, the city council.
City council.
Like a
Yeah,
personal savings account.
yeah. And
It's what it is. It's a savings account.
some of the street projects require special assessments against the property owners and some don't. It depends on the nature of the project, whether it's a full reconstruction project or just an overlay. And
Yep.
even then, it's a possibility.
And Commission, each street project, as Ellie was talking about, is brought before the council. You know, there's a couple stages that we're required to do. One is like a feasibility stage, where we actually just do a study of what it's going to take, what the project is going to cost. And there's several steps like that throughout before a project gets approved, and they're including a public hearing.
Now, these streets are not going to be living streets. These are just reconfiguring the same, we just ripping up the pavement and redoing it. They're not doing a full living street thing? Or?
Mr. Chair and Commission, so with full reconstruction, we always look at living streets as what might fit into the neighborhood. But on the full depth pavement reclamation, because the curb line is staying, it's really about fixing the asphalt. So it's kind of different between those two type of projects.
And this isn't the living, this is just in between, right?
No, actually, the overall CIP, or the overall plan, has both living streets, or like full reconstruction projects, and pavement reclamation projects.
Are any of these the full living
Yes.
streets? They are?
Some of them are, yeah.
Okay, okay. Do they go before bidding that, because the prices on here fluctuate all over. It's like, the Colt Street is, 3.4 million, and the Jarvis is 1.6 million per mile, and then the McMenemy is only, is 404 per mile. How do they come up with the?
So, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, so what we do is I take a look at it like a 10,000-foot view of what the project's going to be. We have estimates based off of the last couple of years of projects for like what a reclaim project is per mile or a full reconstruction is per mile. I also look at things like what type of water main is under the road. Is it cast iron? Is it ductile? Might it need to be replaced by St. Paul Water? So we do our best to do a very high-level estimate of that, and a lot of it is based off of the last 2 years' worth of street project prices. So reclaim project is going to be cheaper than a partial reconstruction, and that is going to be cheaper than a full reconstruction. So that's why and some of these projects have known issues, like if there's a known drainage problem, we'll, plan for additional funds for that as well.
So that's why it fluctuates so
Yes.
much? Okay, yeah, because the McMenemy seems to be quite a bit significantly higher. That must be
And that is that is a full reconstruction project where we'd also be looking at living street items such as sidewalks.
okay.
So how do you measure the durability of some of these streets, in terms of, the resident streets and all that stuff, in terms of warranty on them when they were done or stuff like that? So I may be able to stop the garbage truck going through my street 4 times in a day or something like that, because some of it are going to be charged to me eventually.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, so warranty-wise with construction contracts, it's generally, there is a 1-year warranty period with the construction contract. After that, it's the city's project to maintain. I know that, for example, like the organized trash collection, one of the advantages is it really reduced the amount of heavy vehicles on the roads. At the same time, they are public roads, and we can't tell certain people to not drive down them, and and certain people that they can't. So we do design all our roads, to handle the heavy vehicles, and certainly then have maintenance that down the road we do such things as crack sealing and fog sealing to extend the life of the pavement.
They pay more taxes to drive on the road too.
Well, I'm just wondering, do you have anything, do you instill any mitigation in the use of the road by building bumps or something like that for those people that speed or, misuse the street itself?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, we don't put speed bumps on the road. With plowing and everything in the winter, that gets difficult. But what we do is we do a number of speed studies in areas, and then we work with our police department if it's an enforcement issue. Certainly, if we know of a speeding complaint, and we're doing a full reconstruction project, one of the things that we can do is things like narrowing the roads. A good example is if you look at Frost Avenue, it used to be 50 some feet wide, and now it's 2 lanes wide. And I think my personal observation of driving up and down the road now is people are going a lot smaller because they do feel that condensed road section. So we can do some of that in the design, but we don't do speed bumps on the road.
So if I see my street being misused and all that stuff, should I be worried about it, or should I try to move because it's going to charge me?
You could lay down in the street with 50-50, they might slow down.
Mr. Chair, I believe, did you also ask about whether or not the streets involved a bidding process? Did I hear that?
Yes, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, so every one of our projects does go out for public bid. It is the it's the lowest, most responsible bid. So they do have to have references. The city staff does check on those. But that is the bidding process. So it goes out for public bid.
Okay.
For the average rating of the rest of the streets that are planned, I was just curious how those compared from a PCI standpoint to what the ones are planned for 2022.
Certainly. So right now, most of the streets that are in the plan, if my memory is right, it range from the 30s to the 50s. Some streets get advanced a little bit. We try to do the worst first, but sometimes there's reasons to advance a project. For example, we can come through a winter and a particular neighborhood is really fallen apart compared to one that was beforehand. Or I know on this recent plan we moved some things around because we realized that we had 2 street projects and Ramsey County had 2 street projects, and they were all right next to each other, all planned in the same year.
That's normal.
Yeah, so sometimes we shift things around so that it makes that a little bit easier on residents, as opposed to having every road in one area being done at the same time.
I had a couple of questions on the other thing. How much did this change from last year's on numbers? Did it pretty much in the same range, or did it go up, or did it go down?
That's a good question, Mr. Chair. Very nearly the same. I want to say maybe 68 million. It hovers between 65 and 70 million on any given year.
So it's pretty accurate then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other question I had is on the buildings. It usually amortizes up. It goes up significantly a little bit more each year. We got 22 as 277, and then on 23 it goes down to 120, then back up to 160. I would think that would escalate at the same rate unless there's some type of building improvement, or why is there a difference in those years?
Correct, Mr. Chair. That's also a very good question. So we take a look at what projects that we think are going to be happening. Mr. Love can help out with this as well. In the next 10 years, through the asset management plan that they have, and we schedule it out, and so we never really quite have enough money in the fund, and so we schedule projects for the next year, and sometimes we have to schedule less projects in 1 year because we do a 10-year cash flow, and if we don't have quite enough funding in 1 year, we have to do less projects in 1 year. So I know it wasn't a great explanation, but it's just that there's, we try to levy against the taxpayers a couple of $100,000 a year, and that's what we have for building improvements. And we're trying to increase that a little bit because it's generally, the need is more than that, but that's what we try to levy for. And as you can see in 2022, we needed much more. So we had to kind of adjust projects accordingly. Steve, is there anything you wanted to add?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, and you think of it a lot like your house. You might be planning for certain projects to be done in your house, but then you find out you have an inspection on your furnace, and now it needs to be replaced sooner. And so sometimes that also affects when we bring it back to you next year. Maybe something got moved down, that because we had an emergency kind of a fix as well. So certainly our asset management program helps us with that, as far as trying to make sure that we're getting to the most pertinent things first.
Are we paying significantly less on the YMCA now too, or is that still pretty much a burden for money?
So the city still owns that building, and we do have an agreement for jointly paying for capital expenditures, and we have to, we're in the process of renegotiating that agreement right now.
Okay, good. Go low. Did they do any excavation at the Savannah this year? I know they were talking about that.
Chair.
For historical.
Chair, members of the commission, I'm not aware of any.
Okay. Did you have any question, John? I know you had to start, you did, but do get a good answer.
You asked it.
Okay, okay. You good? No? Okay, I think we are all okay on that. Do we need a motion then, or just, or they're just,
Mr. Chair, this is a public hearing, so you would open that first.
okay. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this or have any questions? Or you can just come up to the mic and sign your name and address and fire away. One more call. Last call. There's nobody on phone calls or anything I have to worry about tonight, right? No. Okay, okay.
Right in the room.
We're all here. Okay, I'm closing the public hearing then. Any last questions, anything? No? Then I guess we need a motion then.
Was there going to be a comment on the variance? Opportunity to comment on the variance?
Mr. Chair. Commission, there's 3 items on tonight's
Yeah, this-
agenda, and that's later tonight.
For the public.
Correct?
Yeah, we're just covering this one right now. So, okay. Where's Tashar? Mr. Hurryman, you gonna?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Motion to recommend the approval of the draft capital improvement plan by the Planning Commission.
I second it.
Motion by Lou, second by Ellen. All those in favor?
Aye.
I think I heard all ayes. Passed. This is just a recommendation by us, and this will go before the city council in December, you said?
Yes, it will. They will continue to work through these projects along with their budget process that's happening this fall.
Okay. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We are on number 2, variance conditional use resolution for 2134 Arcade Street North. Staff?
Good evening, Chair, members of the commission. So 2134 Arcade Street. Our first item here is a request for a variance and conditional use permit. The applicant is proposing to construct an addition to the existing home on the property. Again, that's at 2134 Arcade Street North. The parcel size, 1.9 acre. The variance is to the side yard setback standard in our code, And the conditional use permit would allow the property owner to exceed the maximum allowable square footage for accessory structures. Current controls for the property, the future land use, the property is guided for low-density residential. The zoning designation is RE, residential estate, and within that zoning district, there is a lot size standard. So this one is classified as the RE 30, meaning 30,000 is the minimum lot size. The comp plan guides the property for low-density residential uses with densities up to 2.6 to 6 units per acre, and this would include traditional single-family, detached homes, detached townhomes, and two-family homes. The residential estate district requires a side yard setback of 20 feet, and the applicant is proposing to build the addition at 15 feet from the side lot line. The accessory structure ordinance allows for property owners to exceed the maximum allowable square footage for accessory structures by obtaining a conditional use permit. So here you can see this in this drawing. I pulled a few out of the report and put them in the PowerPoint here. This is the proposed setback drawing. You can see the existing home and the new bedroom and garage addition. And there, the dashed line at the bottom is showing where the 20-foot setback would be, and then the line of requested setback there is at 15 feet. So that darker gray section is the proposed addition location. So that addition would be on the southwest corner inside of the existing house. It includes additional living space and an attached two-car garage. Again, the addition is 15 feet from that south or the side property line. This is an existing conditions survey. So this is a survey that shows the existing conditions of the entire property. The square box on the end is also part of this property as well, on the west side there off of Arcade. So on the property there are two existing garage accessory structures, and then you can see the home there off to the east. So state statute allows variances to be approved when practical difficulties exist. And that is when the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinance, that the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, and that the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. For this case, staff has reviewed the findings and reviewed the application and finds that the request for the side yard setback meets the practical difficulty standard. And this is due to the elevation changes going north on the lot and to limit the slope of the driveway going to the new attached garage and living space. For the conditional use permit, again, there are two existing detached accessory structures on the property totaling 1,975 square feet. According to the applicant, those are used for storage. And the proposed addition does include 598 square feet for an attached garage. This drawing here shows the existing accessory buildings, and then the as 1 and 2. Number 3, with the lines across there diagonally, that is showing the portion of the addition that would be the new attached garage. So in our code, properties are permitted to have up to 2,500 square feet of a combination of detached and attached accessory structures. With the proposed third structure, the property would exceed the allowable square footage by 73 square feet. However, our code does have a provision that allows the City Council to approve an increase in area by a conditional use permit. So again, here, this is the last image. This is just showing the floor plan of the proposed project. There's a whole entire plan set that was sent to you as well because they had originally submitted for a permit. I didn't include all of that in this PowerPoint, but this shows the new garage and the new living space in a little more detail. So as part of this review process, we have folks from various departments that have the ability to review and comment on this. There were no comments or concerns from our environmental planner, environmental health staff, public safety, or building inspections. Engineering did note that the project would require grading and erosion control permits. And of course, as part of our process for reviewing these applications, we sent notifications to adjacent property owners within 500 feet. We did receive 3 responses. Those were included in your report. With conditions of approval found in the report, staff is recommending approval of the proposed variance and the conditional use permit. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the 2 requests, and our applicant is here as well.
So you stated the reason the difficulty is because of the elevation of the driveway. There's only a 2-foot difference in the elevation from the north to the south.
If they were to move, Chair and Commission, so it's my understanding that if they were to move the garage addition, it would change where the driveway connects to the garage. They would have to move it farther back, and that's where the elevation changes as you go north more significantly.
Okay, I guess I'll have to wait till they get up, because
Yeah,
according to
I can
the elevation plot, it shows that it's not much change.
Not right next to the, where the existing home is, not right there out the front, but if you go a little farther north, which if they did move it 5 feet north, they would then have to move the driveway a little farther back so that they could pull out. And so that would be
That's where it would come into play?
That's where it would come into play.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, there are just what makes the most sense with the existing home and adding on to it, stairways, things like that. So I don't know if I have that one in here. Yeah, this sort of shows it, but it is in your packet. There is more detailed drawings on that, but this,
Yeah, attachment 6.
yeah.
In the responses received from, back to the staff, was just curious if those questions were addressed and if there was any follow-up. I know there was a comment in there around a deck, but didn't see anything in those plans. I'm not sure how that would be considered in this.
Absolutely, Chair and Commission. I did respond to all the folks that sent an email. The ones that didn't have any questions or concerns, just, let them know that I would be including their comments. Folks that did have questions or concerns, I tried to answer them the best that I could. And in this case, this was about the trees. And yes, I did email this individual back and just mention that according to the survey that was submitted by the applicant, it does appear that some of the trees are kind of right on the property line, either on their side or on the other side, and that's not something that the city would get involved in terms of whose trees they are. That would be something they would have to, handle amongst themselves. But as far as the deck, that is shown in their permit drawings as well. That would be within the same boundary. And the 10-foot easement, I was unaware of that, and I couldn't find any record of what they were referencing, and I never heard back from anybody, so I'm not quite sure if that isn't, I don't think that would be an issue, and regardless, it wouldn't be something we would get involved in terms of access to the lake, if that's a private easement between them. I think that was the only correct.
Another thing that would be helpful too is to have the addresses that are right within that area too. So if we have a reference to whoever's stating, we know exactly where they're related to that house too.
Absolutely. I do, at the end of the comments, I do provide them if they provide them. I request that they provide their address.
Okay.
Sometimes folks won't respond back with it, but I do include that at the end of the comment.
Right, but if it was on the map that shows relative to what.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like this is, 3982 here and,
Right.
so that we know who's, because somebody way over here is not going to have as much to say
Yeah.
about the setting right next to the backyard,
Yeah, Chair and Commission, that makes sense. I mean, we could look at, particularly when we get lots of comments like this, maybe creating an additional comment map. That's something we could maybe discuss as staff with little dots maybe that kind of call out where we got the comments.
Sure,
That's
sure.
an option we can look into.
Anybody else have anything for the staff? Did the homeowners want to come up for a moment? Are the homeowners here? Are the Okay, sure, come on up. And just state your name and then put on there who you're with and,
My name is Douglas Fletcher. My partner and I are the people that designed the project for our client here. It's really just, we're in a process of just trying to renovate this house that was built by her father, 7 decades ago, into a place where it's more functional for everyday life today. One of the things that is of concern is as they're planning to age out in the house. Currently, in order to avoid having to navigate steep slopes and such, we want to get a 2-car garage that they can pull into and not have to worry about navigating icy walks. Her father, actually, shortly before he passed away, had fallen and broken a rib in the same condition. So that's sort of the impetus for what we're doing here.
now, it says that because of the elevation, when I look at the topo map there, it shows that it's actually not really a great gradient there until you get quite a ways away.
So if you look at the map there, you can see the edge of the drive kind of more or less kind of shown there. And if we push that up 5 feet, what we're showing there is a retaining wall that is just a standard landscape retaining wall out of landscape blocks. I'm fairly certain that will not withstand any kind of real surcharge from a vehicle anywhere close to it. And so that's our concern, as well as not having to have a viable area to be able to pull out decently and not worry about having to go over that thing. So
The retaining wall is where on that? Is that
that's
the-
that gray kind of arch on the top of the drawing there that
okay.
you see a line 20-foot setback kind of straddles that.
Okay. Yep.
But it really, and our client is investing a lot of money just to really rejuvenate, to bring this project back into its glory and
Yeah,
make it better.
I'm sure this is a significant amount of money. My only concern is if it was easier to move that than to have to, to come before us and have that change, because sometimes, but I see that it also, you'd have to move it 6 feet to the west to continue the size of that bedroom too then, because otherwise you're going to lose the size of that bedroom.
Well, yeah, it impacts, it kind of ripples through the whole project. But believe it or not, I mean, my fundamental, after 23 years of doing this, I've just had so many times where I had bad auto courts, where people are trying to navigate, have to do some sort of weird turn. And it's just, my client, I don't want her to be having to navigate that. I want to just try to make it as safe as possible.
Well, in 10 years we won't have vehicles, right?
We'll have flying cars, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any other questions or? So that's the perfect location. I mean, so that's what you're saying is for that driveway, then there's.
Yeah, and I have to say it came out of probably 35 iterations to arrive at this place. So, and just trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Okay.
So
That's.
it looks big, but if you knew the project, the existing home is quite small. It's about 40 by 24 feet. So anyway,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
no problem. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to come up and have questions or speak on this then? This is a public hearing. Anything you guys wanted to add, or you think he had it all covered, or? You did well? Okay,
Glad to answer any questions, any concerns.
okay. Just wanted to make sure they didn't have anything they wanted to interject or anything, so.
I can just say that our client feels a lot of love for Maplewood and have grown up and lived here their whole life. And this property in particular because of their father built the house.
Okay, okay. You're not by the microphone, so we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm
So-
so sorry.
So, that's fine. Okay, and anybody else like to speak? Last and final call. Seeing none, then we close the public hearing. So, Anybody else have any other questions? Everybody's good? I think we're good. Do you want to make a motion or a
I'll make a
question?
motion.
Okay, go ahead, Cheryl.
Motion to approve a resolution approving a side yard setback variance. I believe I have to do them two separately, right? Or can I do them together?
Chair and Commission, you can do them
Oh,
together.
okay. So motion to approve a resolution approving a side yard setback variance and conditional use permit to exceed accessory structure size standards for a proposed building addition at 2134 Arcade Street North.
Then a motion by Cheryl, second by
Second.
Lou. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Hearing all ayes, passed. This is just a recommendation by us, but it doesn't seem to be too difficult, so this will go before the city on,
Chair and Commission, this item will go to the City Council on Monday, August 9th at 7 PM.
August 9th. Okay? Well, good luck. Thank you. We are on number 3. Variance Resolution 2010 Edgerton Street North. Staff? There's an echo in here today. Huh?
Okay. All right, so our next item here, 2010 Edgerton Street North. This is another variance request. This is a variance to the required minimum lot width in order to subdivide the property at 2010 Edgerton Street North. The parcel is 2.86 acres. They are requesting approval for a variance to the lot width standard for the subdivision and shoreland overlay standards. The current controls for the property, low-density residential again. The zoning is R1 residential, single dwelling. The comprehensive plan guides the property for low-density residential uses with densities 2.6 to 6 units per acre. The subdivision ordinance and design standards require that newly subdivided lots be a minimum of 60 feet at the front lot line, which would be on Edgerton Street. The property is also located in a shoreland overlay district, which requires that lots within the shoreland be 75 feet in width. The applicant proposes to create a second lot that would be 34 feet in width on Edgerton. The lot width variance would allow the property owners to proceed with a lot division application. Our lot division applications are reviewed administratively, but the variance request, of course, requires Planning Commission review and City Council. So after this process, then they would proceed to formally subdivide the parcel to build a new residential home on the new lot and sell the existing property. If the variance is not approved, the lot division application cannot proceed as proposed. I did my best to get the entire property on this screen here, kind of cropped the survey a little bit, but you can see the entire property here. So the existing home is on the west side, closer to the street. And again, we're not looking at the actual split tonight in terms of that request that they would potentially proceed with down the line. We're just looking at what they're showing as a potential lot line shown in blue, and that width being 34 feet. The area where their new home is proposed, again, that's a proposed location that we're not discussing tonight. The only item that we're discussing is that lot width variance. So again, we look at state statute. It allows variances to be approved when there are practical difficulties that exist. And so first we look at, when the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner that is not permitted by the zoning ordinance, and that the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances that are unique to the property, not created by the landowner, and the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. After reviewing this, staff finds that the request to create a lot width of 34 feet in width to create a lot with 34 feet in width does not meet those practical difficulty standards that we've outlined. And this is because the existing circumstances are not unique to the property. We certainly think it's a reasonable request, but we don't believe that this request or that the circumstances are unique to the property. And then to follow up with that 34-foot lot width would be out of character for the neighborhood. You don't find other lots in that area that have a similar lot width. And just generally the proposal, because of its location in the Shoreland Overlay District, we don't think it would be in harmony with the city goals and policies that are outlined in our comp plan and our official controls. We also, of course, had other staff had an opportunity to review and comment on this. We did not receive any comments or concerns from engineering, environmental health, public safety, or building inspections regarding the lot width variance. We did receive some comments from the environmental planner, which were included in the report. I won't go through all of that, but address the shoreland lot, her comments address the shoreland lot width variance, the building setback requirements due to the shoreland location, grading and mowing setback, as well as some wetland signage and tree preservation requirements. As usual, we sent our notifications to all the properties within 500 feet of the subject property. We did receive 12 responses. Those were included in your report. Again, did respond to those to the best of my knowledge, and if folks didn't have specific questions, I just included their comments, but if people had questions, I tried to address their questions. So again, staff is recommending denying the proposed variance request, and with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions. Our applicants are here as well tonight to answer any questions.
Is it not common to have access road on some properties like that where they just make, what is it called, the easement for somebody to go through to receive property? Isn't there a few like that in Maplewood now that exist? Or Mike, do you know? Or
Chair and Commission, there likely does have that. Yes, they do exist in sporadic areas of the city. It's not something that's regular or routine. So this request was looked at versus what the standards are and what the purpose of each ordinance is. The subdivision ordinance, the R1 ordinance, and the shoreland. So we're looking at those ordinances that apply to this lot and making a decision based on that. But I think if you were to go throughout Maplewood, that's not a consistent, that's kind of informally called a flag lot. It's something that the city over the years has tried to avoid in general, and that's why ordinances are set up in such a way.
right.
But yeah, there are sporadic examples of it.
Okay.
Question for staff, is there a square footage requirement when you split a lot?
Yes, there is. In this district, it is 10,000 square feet.
So would this property, forget about the minimum lot width, would the property meet the square footage requirements?
Yes.
Chair and Commission, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
You mean the new lot?
Chair and Commission, both lots. If the project were to proceed with a lot division application, both lots would meet the minimum lot size standard.
Go ahead, Alan. Oh, you're shutting off there.
Another question for staff, is there any particular process that would work better to help the petitioners if they were to establish a private road? Because I know condominiums and townhomes oftentimes have like a narrow road going into a property, and then as it gets into the back, they have the actual dwelling.
Chair and Commission, Yes, there would be an opportunity potentially to do that. We don't site plan, so that's not anything that we've looked at and figured out on their behalf. A couple things of consideration, even with private roads, there are still minimum standards that our Public Works Department would require in terms of width is most important, and then how it's constructed. And really the biggest barrier is cost. And that's, again, for the applicant to figure out, is there an economic case for them to punch in a road, and then how many lots could you get? And, with the lake and the shoreline and the buffers, again, we have not site plan or seen a site plan for it, and we won't create a site plan for it from the city side. But I could see that being a challenge, but it's something that could definitely be explored.
Okay, thank you.
Question for staff. I think earlier you said there are some sporadic, issues like this before, and there is ordinance against that, right?
Chair and
Chair and Commission, I think as I thought about that question after I first spoke, I think you'll often find those examples in older parts of the city as well. Ordinances change, ordinances evolve. So we're reviewing this case against today's ordinances and today's standards.
Okay.
What would be the distraction from just having a driveway beside that property? Is it just, it just doesn't, it wouldn't look right, or because it would just look like it's a driveway going to there? See, I guess I know that it's our ordinance to try to eliminate it, but for cosmetic looks, to me, I don't think it would look out of place. It's not like it's unusual to have that there. I guess I don't, that's the problem I'm having, that it would look normal to me when I drove by.
And Chair and Commission, there's, we've heard the term today and used the term character of the neighborhood or neighborhood character. So that's one lens. But there's neighbor or development standards. And so, and then to me, that's not an aesthetic standard when we say that the minimum at the lot line is 60 feet and then at the building line is 75 feet and then they're proposing 34. That's just, is it meeting the development standards? And it's not an aesthetic judgment. It's how comfortable are you with that level of variance versus the state standard of what we're measuring variances against. And
Okay.
I think that's where we've
Set the line. Right.
Chair and Commission, I would just add that uniqueness factor. Is this a unique situation? That was the other thing that we outlined in the report too.
Right. Well, there's no other way to get back there.
That is unique, but there are other lots that have similar, sizes and, locations on lakes where it's not a unique situation.
Okay.
Chair and Commissioner, I'll just, I don't know if we have an aerial map that we could,
Not in there, but.
okay, but on probably attachment 2 of your
Yep.
staff report, there's the aerial,
Attachment 3.
attachment 3, excuse me. Yeah, and this will show it. You can see the lot to the south, depends on how you state it, but, this larger lot that has a similar, as far as like a lot design, that they're, I think, trying to achieve here. But I think that the major difference for me in looking at the two is the part of the lot that extends towards Edgerton is 80 feet wide. So the development standards were met in that case.
That's 2 lots away you're talking about.
Well, it depends on where you're on the lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I know we don't have addresses there, but it's 2004. And if you look at your screen, Paul, I'm shuffling.
Oh, okay,
the
yeah,
lots.
2 lots
yeah.
away, right there.
Oh, right.
From the street. 2 lots of the street.
Wait, shine it on here?
It should just work.
And that's 80 feet wide there, you said?
It's, yeah, approximately 80 feet wide. It's meeting the minimum standards.
Okay.
So I'm just pointing that out as an example of how another lot in the same neighborhood achieved the ability to have a house further set back. And again, that's,
How wide is their lot now without giving the 35? What is the width now?
Chair and Commission, the existing width right now is 138 feet.
Okay.
So if For example, if it was split down the middle, I mean, it would still be just, it would meet the 60-foot lot width, but it would just be under the shoreland lot width standard of 75, because I would think it would be 69 for a lot width, if it was split down the middle,
Right down the middle of the home.
which they wouldn't, right, is not something that would work in this situation.
No. You guys would you like to come up then? Sure, you can.
I'm Bruce, and this is Denise, and we're at 2010 Edgerton. And yeah, we'd want to talk about the lot variance that we're requesting. Like we said, we want to request lot variance and then split the lot and then build a house on the new lot. And then basically why you want to build a new house. We want one level living. It's basically we're looking forward to retirement. We've already looked at remodeling the house, and there's various difficulties and that would make it awkward. We lose certain features of the house that kind of destroy it, and I think what we'd wind up is not something all that great. So we looked around at lots and decided that, well, you know, we've got this great lot right in the back, and, you know, why can't we use it? So we basically have been talking with people, and some of the reasons that we want to build there is that we want to stay there. The new lot that we have outlined from on the survey easily accommodates it. I mean, that is 2 acres in size once you get back the access road to it. And the main features or reasons we want to build there is to accommodate our aging as we go into the future. And, you know, wider doors and things to hold on to, but more so to handle special needs. Right now, Denise is downstairs with, she has special needs area that she needs, and that needs to be brought upstairs in order to get it in one level. We also want bedrooms to have perhaps live-in help and so forth.
Want me to take over? Sure.
I just can't.
Okay.
Okay.
We actually feel that demolishing our existing house would be a waste. It's, 3,200 square feet, but it only has 1 bedroom on the main floor. So, it's a pretty nice house. We actually just put $60,000 into updates with a new roof, new furnace, re-insulate the attic, and put in stamped concrete sidewalks. So to just doze that off and build something would be a real waste if we didn't, So we selected the most buildable location on the back of our lot. So it's a good elevation. It's set back well within the 75-foot setback that the lakeshore requires.
Why don't I take over?
Okay,
again?
go ahead.
I think I'm okay for the moment. But so yeah, the lot area that we chose has proper setbacks. It has the buffer area and so forth. It's highest elevation, and it won't compete with the existing house on the location on the current lot. And the visibility from other neighbors is going to be very minimal. And we won't block any of the people's view of the lake. And that's been, I know, some concerns of people once they find out what we're actually planning to do, that's fine. Benefits of building there, we basically get rid of half an acre is kind of what it comes down to, less maintenance and so forth. The lot, there's almost 3 acres in size, and we'll reduce it, like I said, by that half acre. And I plan on having a smaller lawn. People are very, very concerned about the ecology back there, but I'll have a lawn about the third the size that we have. And another thing is we bring a water supply back there, so when we have to replant trees, because we'll have to replant a few trees because we'll have to get rid of a few trees in order to construct. But we'll be able to keep those trees healthy and growing and vibrant. As time goes on, currently I've got a schlep water back there from the front of the house, a couple 5-gallon buckets, or haul a 500-foot hose back there. Other benefits that people don't think about is overseeing the area. People frequently walk through, usually they're fine. Kids walk back with a fishing pole and so forth, go and use the lot. But it's the usage that people have that sometimes is an issue. We've had issues with people cutting down trees without asking, and we've had a significant area that happened to, and that's upsetting, but they also left a big pile of brush on the lot. And then you get into things like trash removal. We frequently go out and pick up trash because people walk through or drop this or that, or just trash blows into the lot. A lot of it just blows down from the other side of the lake, or on the south side, it blows down from the other side of the lake and accumulates. And then bonfires, kids come in, they bring their bottles and their bag of chips and start a little fire, and a couple days later I discover, oh, I got bottles and bags of chips and some burnt logs. So having stuff built back there just to monitor that is, to me, extremely important, not to mention control of the buckthorn and that type of thing, and also, get an emergency vehicle or something back there as well. The essential character of the area, I think, is preserved. You got to consider that area, that square up there, the lot, that little tag on the left in the picture, that's going to be the current lot, less basically a driveway to the new house. And that's going to be 20,000 square feet. The new lot is going to be 107,000 square feet. So the footprint that the house, the garage, and the shop takes up is about 6,000 square feet, leaving 100,000 square feet for wildlife habitat. I think the most visible change is the driveway, and people can't see it. The people can't see it on either side. There's nobody in the back to see it. The only people that see it are those that drive by. And that seems to be the kind of things that people are saying that, well, but the 34 feet is out of code. And we fully agree that it is out of code. But you won't know that when you drive by. So the other things that it leaves the rural area by building back. We pretty much leave the rural feel of the area intact, and we maintain the low population density. I mean, we're going to have at least a couple of units per acre. We got almost 3 acres, so we're certainly not increasing the population density. We go from 1 family to 2 families. And then there'll be some tree replacements. There'll be some new trees up, but they'll be nicely groomed new trees, and to some degree, I think that almost kind of adds to character when you replace the trees and that type of thing. It's our opinion there's almost a zero change in character and harmony to the neighborhood. Kind of moving forward, obviously we can't do anything without this lot variance on Edgerton Street, which would be 34 feet wide, and which is obviously out of code. But the purpose of a variance is to allow for reasonable exceptions to things that don't alter the harmony and the character of the area. And we understand this, and we fully support it. So anyway, as far as the kind of the various things that you want us to adhere to, is the proposed idea reasonable? And Elizabeth has already said that she thinks it's reasonable. It just doesn't comply to a lot of the codes and stuff that you already have on the books. But is it unique? And we think it certainly is unique. There's not a lot of lots like this. But to fully utilize it, we do require that little access just to get us back to the house. But that house has got plenty of land around it. What we have drawn out there is larger than what we want. We want something that is probably about 10% less in size and so forth. And so that house would probably actually shrink down a little bit from what you see up there. So anyway, that's kind of the situation. Let's see, what else have we got to the It's not based on any types of economic conditions. We feel that it definitely will not change the character of the locality.
Does that water in that lake fluctuate much? Because you're only about 8 feet above the lake line.
I have never seen it come up more than about a foot from where it's at.
Well, excuse me. Actually, that red line there is the 75-foot back
That's the 75-foot
from the
setback.
100-year high mark.
Yeah.
And right now, the actual lake is down in that dotted area.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people across the lake that are a lot closer to it than what we would be. And there's even some people whose front yard goes right into the lake. So, I mean, we're being very careful because obviously we don't want to have a wet basement or problems, and we don't want to contribute to anything going into the lake. So we've been very good stewards.
Yeah, I see you're a part of the Lake Association too.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I know one of the comments was made by someone who's head of our Lake Association, I think comment number 3. And I called her afterwards, and I explained everything to her, and a lot of her concerns were those around her. It's like she's become the mayor of the Orland Lake area, and so they go to her when they have a question. And I explained to her what we're doing. She goes, yeah, I see no reason why you shouldn't be able to do what you're doing. And, you know, it's the only thing that's an issue is to put in access, and I think you guys talked about that earlier. We talked to a contractor years ago, and he said it'd be about $50,000 to put access off of Edgerton or Payne. We looked at both. But if you go out and try to buy a lot now that would have this similar area with the same feel, you're talking close to $400,000. We already own this. Go ahead.
Question for you. The red
Yes.
item on the bottom, it says garage.
The orange,
That's that.
Orange.
That's an easement. Yeah.
our neighbors have an easement to have their garage there.
Oh, they do? Okay, so
Signed.
it's not an encroachment, it's an
No.
easement
No, it's an
then,
easement.
okay.
It was signed like just before we closed on the house over 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope I answered your thoughts.
Yes, yeah. I think you did great. I think we're pretty much got all the information we need. I guess we're just at the point of decisions, and so I appreciate your time, and I understand where you're coming from, and,
Right.
you know.
I mean, I guess the main thing is that we're going into old age, we want a smaller house. We want to stay where we're at because we like the area. We just need access to get back there and use it. I mean, everybody else in our neighborhood does.
You can have two houses on a lot, right? No?
You can while you're constructing one, can't you? Right.
Yeah.
That was my understanding.
Because I'd just move in your house for free, and then you could drive through my garage to the backyard.
Okay.
There you go. Except for there isn't a really good access. There's actually a living room behind that garage.
You could drive through there.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing, is that whole side of our house is glass. So the only place for us to do what we are talking about doing for remodeling would be to cover that up. And we would no longer have the view of the lake,
Right.
which is the whole asset to the house. So, thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you want to come up and speak at this time now, or?
Good evening. My name's Kaz Nelson. I'm the homeowner of the property directly south to this property that has the larger border and the long driveway, so not the one right next to it. But
Two away.
Two away, yeah, the two away
away.
home. I just want to take a moment to thank you for your service on the commission, and thank you to the planning team. Ms. Hammond, it's nice to meet you, and I appreciate you alerting us to the circumstances in the public hearing this evening and the opportunity to comment. And I also want to state that my husband Paul and I deeply value our neighborly relationship with Bruce and Denise Wold, and we want to maintain that relationship. However, we do feel that we'd like to voice objection to the variance. It is our feeling that, in this case, the landowner is asking for rights to develop that do not currently exist, and that variance is a tool of zoning to accommodate unanticipated hardships for other than economic reasons, and that creating a new lake lot is essentially an economic reason. Variances are often used to accommodate small inadequacies of a plan that substantially meets requirements, as in the previous proposal. But a reduce road frontage by 50% is significant. Less road frontage can impair access by emergency vehicles, especially fire response. For this reason, we would agree that flag lots of this nature are generally discouraged by planning professionals, which we heard earlier. It appears that the property was not developed more intensely originally because of site constraints, and that the home site is about 20 feet below adjoining properties, placing it much closer to the floodplain. More homes on the lake does not contribute to lake health. Constructing a building site with trucking in fill material, excavating a house and garage pad, trenching for gas, electric, sewer, and water would be highly disruptive of existing vegetation, trees, and wildlife. Approval of the proposed variance will have a direct and negative impact on neighboring property owners who have accepted zoning ordinances as established. There appears to be viable alternatives for the variance applicant as outlined in the correspondence. And I appreciate you taking the time to hear our reasoning for our objection to the proposal. Thank you.
How long have you lived there?
About 5 years. Yeah, and the previous property owner to us did cut down trees on the Wold's property and cause destruction that was very dismaying to us. And so we've always made a commitment to be in conversation and neighborly discussions if we're going to walk on the other person's land or clear any brush or things like that of that nature. And they've been very generous in allowing our kids to sled down the hill into that area. But certainly I don't know anything about bonfires or pop bottles or anything like that. That must be on the other side. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. But we've really enjoyed a very productive shared use of that area down near the lake and constructively. So,
Okay.
Other questions?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you guys have something you want to speak on to?
I'm Bob Jones. Thank you.
Not Dr. Bob Jones, is it?
Yes, it is, Paul. Nice to see you again.
You do.
We live at 650 East Belmont Lane, which is on the lake, probably somewhat north of where their property is. And our concern is, as the environmental people voice some concerns, is the fragility of that lake. In the last couple of years, the aquatic growth has really gotten out of hand. There doesn't seem to be any good reason to add to the problem with another home in that area. These trees are 100 years old, and while they may plant some new trees, they're certainly not going to plant trees to the size of what is going on there right now. I think the variance, the reason we have rules and that sort of thing is because it's not just for this property owner or for the next 5 years or 10 years. These are permanent plans that need to be addressed, and because these people, they want to live there for their planning their retirement. Then what happens in 2040 and 2050 and 2060 and that sort of thing. So I think the Planning Commission and the city takes these concerns very, very strongly, very accurately, and I just don't think that this is a good use of the area. I think there's too many environmental problems potential problems here, and that's why we as homeowners are opposed to that.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
You have something, Fred? Go ahead. No. No. Thank you. Thank you for your input.
I've got a question for the applicants.
If you could come back up then to the podium here then.
I see there's quite a difference in elevation from the home, the new home, up to the street. How are you planning on addressing the sewage? I know water will go downhill, but
We've talked, we have a plant or a developer right now that we're talking to. We've talked about it. They have things like cold grinders and lift stations and so forth, which make it easier to liquefy and then pump it up to our level to where it just drains off. There's already 2 houses on Edgerton that have that process.
Sure. Okay. I was just curious because I noticed the elevation. Thank you.
And there's also a distance, as you notice, from the new house to the street. And I know that there were questions regarding getting the sewer out to the street. But Kaz and her husband's home is actually set further back than our new build would be. So it wouldn't be any more difficult except for the lift.
Okay. That's just all. That's the only question I had.
So
Thank you.
I do have a comment on what Kaz said. Good to meet you, actually. But my husband talked to her husband before this went out and stepped everything off, showed him with a tape measure, had everything marked, all approximation, right, because we don't actually have a plan. And he gave us the thumbs up, so we were kind of surprised that there was that comment. And all of our adjoining neighbors we talked to, not within the whole 500-foot radius or 1,000-foot radius, but we did talk to those that would be impacted the most. And they all gave us a thumbs up. They didn't figure any reason why we shouldn't be able to do what we want on our own property as long as we stayed within city code, which we are more than within city code except for putting the driveway in and having that only 34 feet wide, which honestly would give more room for emergency vehicles and fire, because there's no way a fire truck could get back there, right? So if kids get back there and start a bonfire like they have done, and with it being so dry, start a fire, there's no way you can get back there. You just gotta let it burn.
Well,
I mean, you know, except for a hose, a regular household hose.
I'd like to talk about, Mr. Jones's, talk about the ecology of the lake and so forth, because right now our lot has no backyard. So in the back of their current house, there's no lawn, there's no fertilizer that we use back there, and we're about 95 feet from the lake. The runoff that we currently create is going mainly off our roof and then down the back, which is all clear water from our roof, or it's going down to the front of the house and across our lawn and then down the street. And that might eventually run into Edgerton Street or into Orline Lake. If we put a house down below, we'll be at a 75-foot setback, which a lot of the houses on Orline Lake, their lawns run right up to the shore. So in our case, we'll have a 75-foot setback with a smaller lawn, so even if we had a heavy rain, any kind of chemical runoff from our lawn to the lake would be very minimal and would be far less than those who are already on the lake. And I think that's kind of basic, the point I just want to make.
Plus, I don't think people that live around the lake realize that Orland collects water off of the 90 or 144 houses that are west of us. So all of that runs down, which was a comment that Diane, the association, head of our association, wanted people to understand that it's not just the people around the lake, it's all the homes that run off into the lake, into the drainage area. It all comes into Orland. And part of it too is because it's so dry and we haven't had as much rain as we normally do. this year.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
not zoned
Any
that,
more
though. It's not
questions?
zoned that, though.
Any more questions while we're up here?
Do PUD.
Pardon?
Any more questions while?
No, no, that's fine. No.
Okay.
Everybody good? Any other discussions? So,
Close the hearing.
our decision should basically be made on what we feel is the law, basically the code, right? Is kind of, not emotional feelings, is that kind of, I guess how I like to ask that?
Chair and Commission, correct, yeah, your charge here is to carry out the zoning code and the subdivision code for the city of Maplewood.
Right, right. There's no one else that would like to speak, correct? I see no more people in the room. I'm going to close the public hearing then. I guess I understand all your circumstances, and if it was me, I'd love to build back there, and I understand all that. But that was my question, we are kind of gauged by the code, and that we should abide by that, or otherwise we might be stepping over our bounds too. I mean, I'd love to, so I don't, that's my personal feeling, I don't know what everybody else is feeling here. I know John's looking at me like I'm nuts, but.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my feeling is that's why we have variances. So it's not like, because I wish Maplewood had every code enforced in the city, but it doesn't. It fails in a lot of ways for following code, and at least these homeowners have come forward and asked for the variance, have come forward with a plan that involves not their economic development, opposed to developers who buy large lots and split them for only profit and tear down houses for only profit. So I'm having a little bit of an optics issue with when we look at codes and make decisions on what are reasonable variances and what are not. And I don't think that's really an emotional issue. I think there's a lot of very good points that both sides have, and we have to judge whether the variance is there or not. And I think if we didn't have that, we would have no reason for the Planning Commission, because then staff could just do all this. And one of the reasons that this board exists is to give homeowners, neighbors, an opportunity to use their land in a way that's practical, useful, and does not have a negative impact on the environment, on the running of the city. So that's kind of where I'm having that, yes, the code is this, and yes, they don't meet the code because of the driveway. But as Fred alluded to, I live in an older part of, there are easements I have two houses that share an easement for their driving into their driveway, driving into their properties. Would I buy that property with that easement? I might reconsider that, but easements do exist in Maplewood.
Mm-hmm.
So there are maybe other solutions here besides a variance, but at this point, I think we just need to decide, is it worth suggesting to the city council that this situation is something that is a variance? And another optic I have is my optic of the CarMax going in where the golf course used to be, and 40 tons of fill going in there to make that work. That ecologically did not make any sense as I watched that go up, and that was before my Planning Commission time. But it's those kind of optics that the community are seeing. So when the community sees developers moving forward at breakneck speed, but homeowners being held back, homeowners really have to question, is Maplewood committed to single-family homes anymore? Or is that a thing of the past? And I think every property owner who pays his taxes, who pays the assessments, should feel like they are on equal footing. And sometimes they don't feel like we do that as well as we should.
You know, one of the things too is, I know there are flag lots there down Hazelwood from, kind of over by where Paul and I live. There's a number of lots that have a drive up one side of the property, and then in the back, there's another house.
Oh, yeah, the barn.
And there's even some that come off one street and back to another street, completely surrounding a lot on the corner. Now, I'm not saying that we would go against staff's recommendation, because God knows they're on the front lines. They have to look at our existing zoning laws and codes and try and protect neighborhoods and the neighbors. But I do think that there are other venues or other mechanisms to get done what you would like to do. I don't know if a PUD would be something that you could do in that and rezone that entire parcel and then have a just make an association, and then people would own the street going back in there, and then you could put maybe 2 or 3 twin homes, or not twin homes, but townhomes in there. I'm not saying that you do that. I'm saying that that would be a possible mechanism. I don't know. That would be up to somebody else.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We closed the public.
I apologize.
Oh, I didn't close it.
But we have had developers call us. The thought of moving and finding another lot, and then to come back and find somebody bought it and did that to it, exactly what you're saying.
We actually, over the last, probably about a month and a half or so ago, about a group of people, actually an individual called who said, who was representing a group of people, wanted to buy our house, pay cash, all that kind of thing. So the thing that we see is, if we don't do something, we kind of feel that someone else is going to buy the house from, if we were to sell it, that someone else is going to buy it from us, and they're going to do kind of like what you're suggesting, and put multifamily or additional houses and things like that back there. Our intent is kind of to save it from doing that by putting the house back there, which makes the rest of it, unless you tear down that house and the house that's on there, you really won't be able to do the development on that lot, later on. It's complicated. In my book, there's a lot of reasons to do it, and there's very few reasons to not do it.
And I'm not suggesting that you develop it like that. I'm just saying that might
I understand
that might be a mechanism for you to pursue.
But my point was, if we don't do it, someone else probably would in the future. That was my point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again.
Okay, we've closed the public hearing then. Anybody else have any comments? Cheryl, anything? Lou? Alan's left the room now, so. We still have a quorum without him, right? Should we move forward then? Okay.
Yes, please.
Does somebody want to make a motion then, John, down there? Would you like to make a motion? Yeah, just read whatever it states on there.
Did you want me to read it, John? I could read it. Motion to approve a resolution denying a variance request to create a lot 34 feet in width for the property located at 2010 Edgerton Street North.
So the thing says a denial, so you have to yes or no on that, so. So let's see, if you say yes, you're denying it, no, just no denying. That's right?
Yep.
So who's in, I guess raise your hand if you're in favor of.
Who's making the motion first?
Point of order, so I'm assuming, Mr. Yang, you moved?
Yeah,
Yep.
So we're looking for a second?
A second? John made the second? No? Who made the second? Nobody made a second? Okay, I'll make a second then. And then we can vote on it. So who's in favor of denying it, which would be a yes, right? Okay, so raise your hand if you're saying yes.
Mr. Chair, instead of raising your hand, I'd suggest then a roll call.
Okay.
So just call each member by one by one, and then if Mr. Iggy, who's now stepped back in, you can update him on the motion.
Okay, the motion has been that if you're in favor of the denying the variance, so a yes would be you're in favor of denying it, no would be no, you don't want to deny it.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
One
So,
vote.
okay, so Cheryl,
No.
Fred,
No.
no,
No.
and Alan said yes, and John.
No.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 no's and 1 yes.
Okay.
So that means that this worded different than normal, that's why it's confusing to me.
Chair and Commission, so the vote's been taken. The Planning Commission has voted 5-1, essentially recommending that the variance be approved. The motion was made different, the minutes will reflect that. And so likely there will be 2 different recommendations going to the City Council then on August 9th.
Okay, yeah. I just had a hard time with
And Chair and Commission, just another point of order. You don't have to say the recommendation that's in our staff report. So if you want to
favor different.
put it the other way, you have that
Should
flexibility.
we change it then now, or?
You've made the motion and the recommendation, so we know what you did.
Okay, okay,
Okay, next.
okay. Well, we probably did a no-no, but I think we're moving forward.
Thank you.
Yes. Any new business?
Chair and Commission, we have nothing further for you tonight.
Unfinished business, visitors' presentations, commissioners' presentations, staff presentations? Nothing for you tonight, thank you. Okay. And then Fred wants to talk for another hour, so we're gonna, so I'll make a motion that we adjourn then at 8:40.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Don't leave before I talk to you guys.